further debate?
The member from Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Thank you, Speaker. I always am proud to rise in the House on behalf of the residents of the great riding of Stormont Dundas and South Glengarry. Speaker, since my time here, I have seen a number of pieces of legislation issued with a fancy name to give the impression of doing great things, but in fact doing nothing or quite the opposite. And Speaker, this is just another one of them. The NDP are clearly taking lessons from the current government. Buying back Hydro One shares will have absolutely no immediate impact on rates. So let's be clear, the NDP had a chance to contain the Ontario's obscene electricity rates that we are seeing today, but they chose to support the government's Green Energy Act without condition, which is the largest contributor to our serious hydro cost problem. To be fair, during the majority Liberal days, it could not have stopped the legislation anyway. But time after time, during the minority government of 2011 to 2014, they supported this government in doubling down on the Green Energy Act and the failed energy policies. I go back to a report written by the Society of Professional Engineers in 2011 that highlight the technical problems of the Green Energy Act and clearly identified the problems that we are seeing today. You cannot add unpredictable and uncontrolled electricity to a system such as ours without serious problems. It's just plain physics, and the government chose to ignore it. This government likes to talk about the Knowledge Society, but it refuses to listen to it. So what have we seen? 20-year contracts being issued for expensive, intermittent, and unpredictable wind and solar power that cost billions of dollars to compensate for it. I have a story of a resident near my area, just outside, actually, in the Liberal riding, that was lucky enough to win one of these contracts, 20 cents a kilowatt hour for solar power. Now he had a time limit to enter or build this system, so he chose to leave it till the end. I think they had a 5-year period. He was attending a conference down in Texas, and there was a discussion about the rates that people were collecting, and he mentioned that he was getting 80 cents a kilowatt hour. People laughed. And then they questioned, where would you get such a raise? And he said, in Ontario, from the government. It just shows how ridiculous this whole plan is. These projects were forced on unwilling hosts after the government promised that it had changed direction and would no longer force them on unwilling hosts. Speaker, in my riding, the township of North Stormont declared itself formally an unwilling host, taking the government at its word. This faith in the Liberal government was once again proved to be a big mistake, and has cost them more than $500,000 a year in lost revenue on the project. Speaker, all over the province, communities have let this government know that they are against the projects, but they have been ignored. But to make matters worse, the project has proven to be a disaster for the province and its residents. The government brags about closing down coal plants, a program that was actually started by a former PC government, Minister Elizabeth Whitmer, with a realistic date of 2014. The Liberals under the former Premier scoffed at the 2014 date and promised to have them shut down by 2007. History tells us that Minister Whitmer was right in listening to the experts, as the government missed their 2007 promise and their 2011 promise, barely meeting the original PC commitment of 2014. Speaker, it goes to show what a Liberal promise is worth. Remember the signed contract not to raise taxes and how long it took for them to break that promise? But more disturbing to the story is the government continues to tell the people of Ontario that closing coal plants was due to the installations under the Green Energy Act, even though the vast majority of the installations were not even operating at the time of the closings. If you need further proof, one needs to look at the actual green contribution to Ontario's power supply in the order of 2 to 4%. This did not replace the 15% contribution to coal. Not included in those numbers would be the power loss when Bruce Power is ordered to blow off steam, or when our dams are ordered to spill water, or where the wind turbines are ordered not to produce power. This is all power that you're dearly paying for, but does not show up in the production numbers. but surely shows up on the balance sheet and must be paid by the electricity users in Ontario. This is just another stretch goal that the Liberal government hopes the people of Ontario believes despite the evidence against. So let's give credit where credit is due. We have to thank Bruce Power for the contribution as they increased their production from 6 to 8 units, a 33% increase, enough to shut down all the coal plants. And with the added gas plants, should have been able to meet all of Ontario's needs. So let's not forget the Liberal government for their contribution. For with the escalation in power costs, expensive red tape regulation, and expensive policies that drove the cost of running a business so high that many businesses moved out of Ontario and actually reduced their electricity requirements. In fact, Ontario is consuming less electricity than it did in 2003, 14 years ago when the Liberal government took over. The president of a major automotive maker has reported the government's policies have made Ontario the most expensive place in North America to run a business. And we can actually see this result in Ontario moving from the #1 automotive manufacturer that it was in 2003 to the #3 position today. Again, back to the Society of Professional Engineers, who recently issued a report highlighting that these failed Liberal policies have, in 2006, cost ratepayers of Ontario $1.25 billion. And I've heard the members opposite talk about stupid policies. And I believe most sane people would declare the Liberal government's policies as extremely costly and devastating to the people of Ontario. And yes, possibly stupid. Speaker, we have not only chased away well-paying jobs out of the province, we have also made it very expensive for a family to live and raise their children. We see people come into my constituency office at wit's end, not knowing how they are going to either buy food or heat their homes. And many people retired years ago with decent pensions with the thought that they could see them through their golden years. But Speaker, this Liberal government has made these years anything but gold. Speaker, we have the dire state of the electrical system that was the envy of the world before this Liberal government took control of it. And I see the NDP party finally taking steps to distance itself from the policies of the Liberal government. But it is too little, too late. Thank you.
Further debate? Member from Niagara Falls.
Thank